Good morning and afternoon. In this video I'm gonna show you what I find out about creating seamless textures with Affinity Photo and Gimp. And this workflow is for 16K, let's do 16K and 32K resolution maps. 8K is perfectly fine to use Substance Painter and probably Art Engine offer any kind of exporting values, but I never use it, so it's hard to say what kind of resolution is possible to export from there. So let's say it's not an option. So Affinity Photo is quite cheap solution. It's I think €70 flat, and you get everything what is goes with that. When Gimp is free, but you need to use not released officially version that currently is 2.999.8. So it's better basically. But for Affinity Photo, you just use most recent version. So let's talk about first of all about limitation, because that is most important thing to be aware of. So I said that method work with 16 and 32K resolution map, but there's an asterisk for 32K. So first of all, 16K works smooth and perfectly fine with Affinity Photo. You are able to open and work with 16Ks at full 32-bit resolution. So in the scenario when we work with height map, displacement map that is full float, it's not a problem. You can export those files without any kind of issue. And in fact, those maps are not real. I just export them just for sake of that presentation. So there's a proof. Those files are perfectly fine exported. 32 bits, 16-bit, 8-bit depth. 32K, like I said, have a asterisk because first of all, Affinity Photo can crash. So you need to create a project file quite often and save to avoid losing any kind of progress that you made. It is possible to export 16-bit depth at that resolution, but 32-bit crash. Or more, I suppose to say, exporting as XR crash. That kind of file is not possible to create. I was waiting 5 hours yesterday and the application just closed, give it up. So are limited to 16 bits. And of course you can't export that kind of file as the PSD file to re-export it with Photoshop, because exporting is limited to 30K resolution. So are limited to JPEG, PNG, and probably couple other formats. Let's see what we got up here. So PNG, JPEG, TIFF, just 16 bits. So as you can see up here, TIFF limited to 16 bit, and PDF file if you really want, Targa if somebody wants. So yeah, 32-bit K resolution map is limited to 16-bit and nothing above that. You can use Gimp, and up here when we export, you have a couple of file tabs, quite a lot. But when I was trying to export that as XR, so it will be somewhere up here. So there it is, open XR image. The file once again wasn't successfully saved. And when I was exporting as TIFF, that TIFF file appears empty. So 32K, like I said, have that ugly asterisk when you are limited to 32-bit depth. So basically, if your height map is 32-bit, you lose data. Okay, with that disclaimer, let's jump into the Affinity photo. And I'm gonna show you a workflow for working with 32K resolution map. But for sake of presentation, I'm gonna use 16K to speed up everything. So in Affinity photo, when you drag and drop things to the canvas, let's use new empty. Or actually, let's close it and open once again as the empty canvas. You have two options to import files to Affinity photo. By drag and drop them to canvas or to the toolbar. And I suggest to use toolbar because normally when you drag and drop to the canvas, each single of these layers gonna appear as the picture, not pixel, except one. And in that case, you are forced to use rasterization. But because of the file size, that is quite big to be fair, it takes a long of time. So I suggest to just drag and drop them into the separate layers, and thanks to that, one of the files will be set up as the 32-bit already because it's our height map, right? So we're basically gonna drag and drop, copy paste those other files up here to have full control over, to not lose any kind of data. So first thing after the import, we're gonna apply filter, distortion, affine to move our maps to the correct position. So by 50% offset for X and Y. And it's gonna take short amount of time. For normal map, it will be slightly longer because it's 16-bit, right? But it's not that long time. Couple of seconds, not big deal at all. See how fast it is. And I suggest applying that filter separately because if you apply it on the single project, there's a high probability of the crash. So just in case, apply that filter separately, and then you can copy paste your file to the height map project. So just before we paste up here, let's rename our layer height and Control V. And there is our AO. So I'm gonna make same for diffuse and normal map. And in this moment, it's really good to create a save file with all our layers in the correct position with that filter applied. So that method works same in Gimp as in the Affinity photo, and in fact, I found information about that technique on the Adobe forum when somebody complained that Gimp free software is able to make such an operation when paid software is not. So we pick up first of all our in-paint brush, and we set up sample of the brush at really high, and we just with the shift button we select all our layers just like that. And just in case to not creating any fakes, you can see this ugly seam up here, and in the just a couple of seconds it's gonna disappear. So with the in-paint brush, Affinity photo gonna sample from the random part of the model information to fill out that empty space. As you can see, Affinity photo apply same in-paint brush stroke for each single of those layers. So that message, that progress bar appear 4 times. And that wasn't that much long. So let's see, diffuse is clean. And Affinity photo took information from here. Same for normal map and same for AO. And of course, height map as well. So as you can see, it's really nice, easy and fast method, at least for 16K full float bit depth. But we want to use clone stamp tool instead of in paint. So once again, we select all our layers, pick up clone stamp tool, and with the Alt button, we make sample, and we're gonna pick up, remove that part of the model. So let's see how it looks before. Sample, really not that big stroke, because when you go with really high resolution, it takes a long of time to copy paste those information. So we stick to something around 200 pixels. Hardness of the brush, we can set up it way larger. Same with the brush itself. Affinity Photo offer a lot of those brushes. And we just paint. Oh, right, because I didn't select all of those. We need to click Ctrl Z, and once again, all our layers, sample, and paint. And don't expect that kind of workflow will be nice and smooth. It will be choppy. And let's see, just in case, 34 gigabytes of the RAM used, but processor stays quite low, so it's perfectly fine. I don't remember I mentioned that before, but if you experience any kind of problems, go to the performance and set up render engine and the warp. But I don't know why I don't see those settings right here. It's supposed to be my GPU, so 1080 Ti as the default, and second option is supposed to be warp. And warp is, you can see it on the Affinity help desk. It's used as the alternative method for any kind of situation when you have performance issues, which is perfect for our case because we work with really large textures. So we have our in paint, and let's see how diffuse map looks like. And yep, our problematic spot disappeared. So quickly let's jump into the Gimp, but disclaimer, I never used Gimp before, so that will be just in theory. So in theory, you want to load all your textures as the layers, because that's the fastest way. So for that presentation, let's just select those three maps and just ignore height map that is quite large and heavy. And inside of the Gimp, you're gonna see information about conversion, but I have no idea how to react to that one. So someone with more experience with the Gimp can explain that in the comment. I just click keep for each single of those layers that appear. Okay, there are all our maps, and you can see how slower compared with Affinity Photo Gimp is. It's still 16K resolution, when in Affinity Photo that's instant change, right? But like I said, Gimp is free, so do not complain about that. So method up here is same. So we select all our layers, and in that case, let's remove that small bit up here as well. So it's some kind of part of the rooftop tile. So we click on the healing brush that is set up as the default tool, and we select clone stamp tool, and instead of Alt, like in the Affinity, we click Ctrl in on the canvas on our texture to make a sample. And now we just paint over. In Gimp, it's really nice that clone stamp tool works way faster than in the Affinity, and that's huge advantage. So let's see, after inpainting, we see our normal map and diffuse and AO looks same, seamless. So yeah, like I said, pay attention that for 16K you are not limited to anything with the Affinity, but 32K is, I would say, experimental, and you are limited to 32 to 16 bits with TIFF file. Full 32-bit is still unknown for me how to export files without crash. But that's quite a lot still, way more than Substance Painter, that's for sure. Okay, good luck with everything and have a nice day.